This week on Africa Weekly, we meet some of the Rwandans working tirelessly for reconciliation 25 years after the country's genocide. And we travel to a camp in Rwanda where former militiamen who took part in the killings have returned after years in exile. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. Algerians celebrated news of President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's resignation following weeks of massive demonstrations. Protesters in Algiers welcomed his departure, but said they were determined to continue the protests for a complete political overhaul.
We won the battle, but not the war. There's still work to do.
Footage aired on state television showed 82-year-old Bouteflika handing his resignation letter to the head of the Constitutional Council. According to the Constitution, once the president officially resigns, the Speaker of the Upper House of Parliament, currently 77-year-old Abdelkader bin Salah, acts as interim leader for up to 90 days, during which a presidential election must be organized. A vaccination campaign was launched in Mozambique's central city of Beira on Wednesday after Cyclone Idai unleashed an outbreak of cholera. International relief agencies and the health ministry are hoping to immunize nearly 900,000 people against the waterborne intestinal disease, which has already killed 2 people and infected more than 1,700.
Following the cyclone, a lot of the infrastructure was damaged, so people have limited access to clean water and sanitation, and the vaccine, this oral cholera vaccine, will help protect them from cholera.
Cholera is transmitted through contaminated drinking water or food and causes acute diarrhea. It is especially dangerous for infants. Hundreds of thousands of survivors have been placed in temporary and crowded shelters, many of them lacking clean water and adequate sanitation. Recent figures put last month's cyclone death toll at around 600 people in Mozambique and more than 200 in Zimbabwe. Senegalese President Macky Sall was sworn in for a second term on Tuesday. His successful re-election campaign was based on his Emerging Senegal infrastructure project to spur economic growth. At the ceremony, he promised to be a president for all Senegalese men and women.
Je renouvelle par conséquent mon appel au dialogue.
I therefore reiterate my call for an inclusive dialogue, a constructive and open dialogue, to all the living forces of the country, to all political forces, to economic and social forces.
À toutes les forces politiques, aux forces économiques et sociales.
Officials in the Democratic Republic of Congo confirmed that parliamentary elections will be held on Sunday in parts of the country that were unable to participate in December's vote due to security issues and an ongoing Ebola epidemic. The vote, which will also involve municipal elections, will take place in the city of Beni and Butembo and in the western Yumbi region. Opposition candidate Felix Tshisekedi was elected in the long-delayed presidential vote, and his party is working to cobble together a coalition government with former President Joseph Kabila's party, which won a majority of seats in parliamentary elections. An estimated 10,000 people attended Mass at a Rabat stadium on Sunday, rounding off Pope Francis's visit to Morocco, including many migrants from sub-Saharan Africa. The Pope called for tolerance and peace after warning worshippers in an earlier service at a cathedral in the capital against trying to convert others. Christians are a tiny minority in Morocco, where 99% of the population is Muslim, with sub-Saharan Africans making up a large part of the country's 30,000-strong Catholic community.
Thomas lives in Mutete, 40 kilometres north of Kigali. The father of 5 is well respected in his village. He is seen as a figure of reconciliation. During the 1994 Rwandan genocide, more than 800,000 people were killed, mostly from the Tutsi minority ethnicity. All of Thomas' relatives fled the village, but he chose to stay behind.
I saw no reason to leave. As long as the attackers were my neighbors, my friends, people with whom I shared everything, it was inconceivable that they could kill me.
He lost most of his relatives in the bloodshed. though he himself miraculously escaped death. Thomas felt his calling after the genocide lay in promoting reconciliation. He encouraged people in ever greater numbers to return and pray at the local church. Pushing his efforts in all parts of life, this Tutsi man decided to marry a Hutu woman from the majority ethnicity.
While people thought I was going to marry a Tutsi survivor, I chose a person of a different ethnicity. It was a personal decision. Nobody forced me. It was my choice, and it was a crucial step.
At the time, mixed ethnicity marriages were very rare and not seen positively. But for Thomas and his wife, it was essential to overcome these ethnic divides. The future of their country seemed to depend on it. The couple became an example in their village.
They see our home as a role model, observing how we conduct ourselves in the community. We are sometimes contacted to help other conflicted households.
But the deeply ingrained lines of ethnic division can take a long time to fade. In an attempt to speed up progress, laws have been introduced that prohibit the mentioning of ethnicity in public. It is a potential step towards reconciliation, but the real progress will have to come from the citizens of Rwanda.
Joseph is a former member of the FDLR, a rebel militia which includes soldiers who took part in the Rwandan genocide. When the 1994 genocide was brought to an end, the group was forced to flee Rwanda into neighboring DRC. But after a quarter of a century haunting Congo's forests, Joseph was exhausted and wanted to give up the fight. He arrived at this camp 3 months ago.
I am among the first to have laid down arms voluntarily. I wanted to promote peace in the Great Lakes region, especially in Congo and Rwanda.
Joseph is one of over 1,500 former FDLR fighters who returned to Rwanda in November 2018 after Congo refused to allow them to stay any longer. He was happy to come home, but sad that it was not the result of dialogue between the Rwandan government and opposition groups.
From this dialogue, they should have found proper return conditions, dignified and secure. But we then learned that this dialogue did not happen because Rwanda did not judge it necessary to participate in or organize this dialogue.
In this camp in Mutubo, 100 kilometers northwest of the capital Kigali, the former rebels are learning how to reintegrate into society. They receive civic education classes aimed at combating the bloody ideologies that led to the genocide. 47-year-old ex-FDLR fighter Focus Puringiyimana is training to be a tailor. He urges his former FDLR comrades still fighting in the bush to come back home.
They should come back to the country to work for their own development. They are only wasting time, and it will do them no good.
Rwanda's Demobilization and Reintegration Commission, which runs the Mutubo camp, has handled 11,000 fighters from rebel forces since 1997. Each group spends 3 months in the camp before they can return to families and homes they left decades before. They are then also issued identity papers and a one-off payment of $66 to start their new lives.
Inmates took part in a talent show on Sunday in the medium security section of Kodiaga prison in the Kenyan city of Kisumu. The event is organised by youth volunteer groups and aims to help rehabilitate prisoners. South Africa's women's football team has begun preparing for the World Cup in France this summer. It's one of 3 African teams qualified and will be playing Jamaica in a friendly game in Durban this weekend. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.